Welcome to a pivotal moment in the world of broadcast as we proudly present the Men's Mental Health Show featuring the renowned Larry Mabry in collaboration with the Maassen Group. This essential exploration of men's mental health wouldn't be possible without the invaluable support of Rainier Avenue Radio World. Now, let's dive into this crucial conversation with Larry Mabry and the Maassen Group. Your mental well-being matters. Here's Larry Mabry.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this January 8th, 2024. It's good to see everybody. For those individuals, hopefully everyone had a pretty good new year. Looking forward to kind of connecting with everyone today. For those individuals that know, the last couple of weeks we kind of had a break, but I'm looking forward to kind of touching base this evening. So today, we're going to be looking at, mental health, nurturing healthy relationships. But before we go forward, again, I wanted to thank Rainier Avenue for their support of this particular broadcast. Without further ado, we'll get started. So hopefully everyone had a pretty good 2023 as we broach over to 2024, and looking forward to some exciting things happening. So anyway, nurturing healthy relationships, a journey into mental health. Quick question. So what is the importance of mental health in relationships? Think about that. What comes to mind when you think about fostering healthy relationships within your relationships that you have with people? Is it important? Is it not important? What are your thoughts on that? Okay, so let's talk about it. All right. I think I'm going to go to the slide here. Okay. So the definition of relationships as it relates to mental health, as we define it, it's about a few things. It relates to self-care. It also relates to mental. How does one take care of themselves? What are some things you need to do that? Well, these last couple, I would say 2 weeks, I had the opportunity to kind of hang out with family, get a chance to kind of do some introspection. I know for me, typically the end of the year, it gives me the opportunity to kind of do some housekeeping as far as, okay, what are some things I need to work on? What are some things that are doing really well? And for me personally, the biggest word that came to my mind was balance. Balance. What does that look like? Well, I know for me, I noticed that a lot of things have been going on really well, but some things have kind of been out of balance. And so for me, I want to kind of focus on that. But within that, to foster a healthy relationship with individuals, for me, I realized it started with myself. And you may say, well, yourself? Yeah. Well, basically, making sure that I have the balance, I have the necessary things within myself so that I can actually be what I need to be for those other individuals. But if I don't have it within myself, then how can I actually support those individuals who need support, right? Okay, cool. Having a little technical difficulty here with my slide, so let's see if we can go here. Okay, here we go. All right, so I wanted to share some statistics for those individuals. See if I can get my slide going here. Okay, so according to the National Institute of Mental Health, approximately 10.4% of men in the United States experience major depression in the past year. Men are less likely than women to seek help for mental health issues, with a stigma and societal norms playing a significant role. I wanted to share that because I know for me, I service men, women, couples, I would say organizations, groups. And I noticed with a lot of the men, we have those real conversations. And there is a stigma, right? because people typically think, oh, if you talk to somebody, there's something going on with you, and really there's no problem. Before, those individuals who checked in before, I talked about having your Jedi group, or what we call your um, Jedi Council, right? Those individuals you can talk to who can kind of help you through situations. And mentally, you need that support. If you grew up in a situation where you didn't have that support, how do you know what it looks like, right? So it's important to have that Jedi Council to kind of help you with that. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay. All right. For some reason I can't see it on here. Okay. I apologize, individuals, for those individuals. I'm actually trying to pull it up, and for some reason it's not coming up for me here. Okay, let's try it now. Okay, the connection between individual and relationship mental health. One of the biggest things that I know for me is communication. And I've learned, I would say, for me, 2023 has been really interesting because um, there's certain individuals I feel like I communicate very well with. And as I've been growing in my business and as an individual, I noticed that that's an area of growth for myself because we all have different communication styles. Um, Together, everyone achieves more. That creates a team. But how do we do that, right? Um, I've noticed as I interacted with different cultures, as well as different groups, there's different communication styles, right? And I noticed for me personally, I had to open up a little bit, become a little bit more vulnerable with making sure that I was clear. Because a lot of times in your mind, you think, oh, I'm very clear, right? But for another person that thinks differently, that can kind of pose a problem. So as I started communicating and kind of having conversations with certain professionals, I realized, oh, yeah, I guess if I say it like this, it does kind of come off that way as well. I wanted to share a story. So I've been working on a task with a friend of mine, and we were talking about collaborating. We were collaborating on a project, and she explained it to me one way, and I understood it another way. And I completed it, and then we kind of collaborated again to connect to say, hey, okay, how's it looking? And she was like, you know what? I saw it this way, you saw it that way, but we still worked it out. But what was really interesting in that communication was um, we realized that we were triggered with certain things. And I asked myself, wait a minute, is this an issue with the individual? And because I try to work on being very authentic with myself, I said, you know what? It's not really an issue with the individual. But I appreciated that conversation because what that taught me or told me about myself was sometimes in my mind, I think one way, and that's okay. But if someone challenges that, like I had to ask myself, was I bucking up about that? Like, was I frustrated with that? Was that an issue? And then I asked myself, why is that an issue? Right. And I asked myself that, and I realized, wait a minute, it wasn't really an issue at all. It was just that we understood things differently. But I noticed when the individual, when they were triggered, I wasn't triggered, but I appreciated the conversation because I remember times when I get triggered. And I would say the last couple of weeks, there have been certain situations where the communication for me has been really interesting. So a different individual was talking to, and I asked them a question, and their response to me was, oh, you know what? Why are you aggressive? And asked myself, I thought to myself, wow, am I aggressive? At that time, I was sitting there eating pizza, and I'm like, no, I'm not aggressive. But then I inquired and said, hey, what am I doing that's making you feel like I'm being aggressive? And the individual wasn't able to really convey the message. And I was like, okay. So I'm sharing this because sometimes there may be individuals that you communicate with where it's not really your issue, right? It could be their issue, but I'm expressing this because what that taught me is sometimes you just have to hold the space, right? What does that mean, hold the space? Well, just kind of be present, be a little quiet, be more in tune with how you're conveying your message, right? Um, Listen, make sure that you are respecting where they're coming from, watch your body language, make sure you are mindful because this individual shared my energy. And I thought to myself, I'm like, I'm feeling comfortable. I'm feeling fine. I didn't come with a high pitched voice or express myself in such a way that I felt was aggressive. But I was humble enough to duly note that and to be mindful of that. Um, anyway, I wanted to share that. Now, to kind of give you a little bit of perspective, the first individual is from Seattle. The second individual is from another country. So I'm not sure if there was a cultural situation in that regard. I'm not sure. I guess that's for you to decide. But I just wanted to kind of share that because sometimes you communicate one thing, someone else communicates one thing, but yet it's still misunderstood. And how I like to look at it is when someone says something and it goes from your mouth, it goes in the air, and then it actually goes into the other person's understanding. Like first they have to hear it and then make some understandings with it. And then from there, then they have to be able to kind of understand what you communicated, right? And sometimes you may say or communicate things in one way, but it may have a different connotation depending on how the person interprets it. So, anyway, I want to talk about that. Together, everyone achieves more. Being mindful of how you're communicating as far as your verbal, but also being mindful of your body language, right? Being mindful of your innuendo, being mindful of, you know, just being present. So I would say for 2024, that's something I've been really working on is communication, right? Making sure I'm clear, making sure that I am receptive, making sure that because I know coming from Detroit, there's some slang and some things that I understand one way, but Washingtonians have another perspective. So making sure that we're on the same page with that. Okay. Individuals with good mental health tend to communicate more effectively and openly with their partners. They can express their feelings, thoughts, and needs clearly. But if we're struggling with ourselves as far as, where we are, then that could be an issue. Mental health challenges may lead to difficulties in communication. Issues such as anxiety, depression can hinder the ability to articulate emotions or resulting in misunderstandings and conflict. And so I want to bring this up because in this particular situation, this was a blatant example of how you may communicate one way, but someone else may interpret it another way. So let me put it into a real world application. So with myself, coming from the African American community and growing up in Detroit, I realized that there's a lot of misunderstanding as far as communication, right? So, for example, if I were to say something like, "Hey, that's my boy," right? That could have a very positive point of view depending on when you communicate to somebody. However, if someone you're not privy to or you don't really know them and they say, "Yo, what's up, boy?" Well, according to a lot of terminology and a lot of racial slurs back in the South, that has a very negative connotation, right? And so you have to kind of be mindful of like where you kind of control yourself as far as how you communicate, but at the same time, like not really kind of get involved with the way other people communicate because at the end of the day, you can't really control them. And so the lesson for myself is to basically be mindful of how you respond as opposed to reacting. So I just want to kind of share that. Okay, cool. All right. So now part of having those relationships is making sure that you nurture yourself. Yeah, you got to nurture yourself. So here on this slide, I have a self-esteem test. Let's see if I can access it. The first link here. If you go to Psychology Today, you can actually click on it, and I believe it's like 15 minutes. But what's cool about it is it allows you to really look within yourself and be honest with yourself on what are some things that you need to be mindful of. I know for me, dealing with a lot of men in this space, there is a particular, I would say, point of view that we are encouraged to take from a society standpoint. It could be as far as cultural as well, and that can be a challenge, right? That can be a challenge, and because what happens is as we embark on life, there are a lot of pressures that we have to face, and that can be a challenge because at least for me, it's very challenging to see if you can find somebody out here who can say, hey, we got you. um Usually there's this expectation like, nope, you pretty much got to do it yourself. So but yeah, okay, cool. So if we notice, we have the self assessment. Let's see if we can go through here real quick. So let me see. Okay, so if we take it, the first one says basically, I think that overall people find me boring to talk to. Is that strongly agree, somewhat agree, or disagree? You can go through this. I believe it's 34 questions, so it's pretty simple, and just kind of go through it. And I believe at the end of it, you basically just kind of give them your email, and you'll kind of get your results. And if you notice that you're struggling with certain things, you can always reach out to me. And the next link I have there is actually my Psychology Today profile. I'm actually on Psychology Today. If you go to Psychology Today and you open that up, you'll see a barrage of different particular practitioners. If you put my name in and it's spelled LarryMabry, put in, you'll see me there. Or if you need to search, you can actually go and put in Southfield, Michigan. I know you might, Michigan, what's up? We in Washington. Well, what I notice is if you put in Southfield, Michigan, you'll see me pop up, but I'm also in Washington as well. So that's one way you can reach out to me, and I can do what I can to support you. If you feel like a lot of information I'm saying here could be beneficial for you, just reach out, and I'm here to support you. Okay. All right, cool. Moving on. So now, if we go to the next slide here, understanding and empathy. Now, these are very important, necessary skills to have whenever you're dealing in relationships, right? But also, too, just with like yourself, right? Um, in that situation I explained earlier, I had to not take it personal, right? Those individuals express themselves. If I felt something bubbling up inside, I had to kind of put that in check, right? Because everybody has a right to express themselves. And if I take it personally, then that's basically me projecting what I feel in that situation. And that's not really fair. So in that situation, just kind of taking it in, um, and have an understanding. And understanding basically involves comprehending the thoughts, feelings, and perspectives of another person, right? And I would like to add, without judgment, you're just saying, okay. And if that's a challenge for you, if I can give some words of advice, in those situations, I usually just say one word, and that's okay. I like to use that word because it's very neutral. Because sometimes you can say words that can trigger people, and so I usually like to say okay, no problem, and just keep it light. Um, but also, it goes beyond the surface level awareness, as far as understanding, and requires a deeper insight into the motives, experiences, and intentions of someone else. And sometimes you may not be able to kind of feel that person out. So you have to kind of keep it neutral. And to have empathy, basically, it's when you're actively paying attention to what the other person is saying without interrupting, and demonstrating that their words are being heard and acknowledged, right? It feels really good when a person's saying something and you're like paying attention to them. You're just being present, right? You're just listening. And you don't necessarily have to like have the head bob as far as like yes or no, but it creates a space where the person feels comfortable with expressing themselves and you can kind of meet them halfway. And that opens up the dialogue. It creates like a vacuum that allows you and that individual to kind of build that relationship, right? Also acknowledging and respecting the differences in opinions, beliefs, and experiences between individuals. If you notice that you're trying to defend something, then that lets you know that there's something within yourself that you need to work on. We're not judging it, but that's not allowing the other individual to really truly express who they are so that you can help meet that need. And we're all on different wavelengths as far as that. I'm constantly working on that myself. I would say I've gotten a lot better. However, I feel like no one's arrived. We're still trying to work on becoming the best version of ourselves, right? Whatever that looks like. And for those individuals that are here, I still see a few people here. What do you think as far as understanding and empathy? Do you think that's important in your relationships? And then how are you able to demonstrate that for yourself as well as the people you have relationships with? I would say for me, the biggest thing that I'm learning for myself is to go a little easy on myself, right? And that can be challenging. I grew up, I would say, in a tough household. And some of those things are great as far as diligence, perseverance, courage. But some of those things I feel like can be a little bit overbearing. And so earlier I talked about balance. So I think it's important to impart balance to kind of get what you desire out of life. I think if you use a little bit too much force, it can actually make things a little bit more challenging. A little bit more challenging. Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. So I want to recap real quick. I'll go back through real quick and then we'll conclude our session for today. So, real quick, we were talking about the nurturing healthy relationships. And what does that look like? Well, we talked about the importance of mental health in relationships. And how do we actually handle that? Well, it's about self-care. It's about taking care of ourselves emotionally, psychologically, within ourselves so that we can be who we need to be for that individual. We also talked a little bit about statistics. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, approximately 10.4% of men in the United States experienced a major depressive episode in the past year. And men are less likely than women to seek mental health for issues because of stigma and societal norms that's associated with that, which play a significant role. So a lot of times men kind of suffer in silence. But I want to tell you, you don't need to suffer in silence. Feel free to reach out. You feel like you need support. You do have people here to support you. There are organizations like School, South King Emotional Wellness League that provides mental health services free of charge. So you can reach out. Like I said earlier, if you're interested in that, if you go to Psychology Today, put my name, Larry Mabry, Mabry, you can find me there. Also, too, if you put in Southfield, Michigan, you'll see me there. And I talk a little bit about school. So anyway, a lot of support for you if you're interested for that type of thing. Okay. And real quick, as we wrap it up, I got one more slide I want to talk about. We also talked about connection and communication. Together, everyone achieves more. So making sure that you kind of work on yourself so that you can help work with other people. And also, too, we talked about knowing yourself. What does that look like? Making sure that you are doing what you need to do to take care of yourself as far as balance, as far as taking care of your psychological health, mental health, and things of that nature. Okay. All right. So we're kind of getting to the end of the show. So real quick, I want to thank you guys. Thank Rainier Avenue for their support. of the show. Um, it's been a pleasure being with you guys. I know we haven't been on for a little bit, so I'm curious to still see what you guys feel as far as the having the radio show. So basically, if people call in, I'm curious to see your thoughts on that. So we're gonna wrap it up here. So the next individual that'll be coming on will be Dr. Tracy Harrell, living powerfully together. And I just want to say thank you very much, and we'll see you guys next week.